AI is already changing fertility care. From embryo imaging to personalized IVF treatment plans, technology is evolving. But what do these changes actually mean for patients trying to grow their families? And maybe more importantly, how do you balance innovation with care that still feels human?
Everyone's biology is a little bit different, and we know that outcomes are going to be different if you give everyone the same protocol.
In today's episode, reproductive endocrinologist Dr. Meir Olcha breaks down what's actually changing in fertility treatment right now, what patients should really be paying attention to, and why personalized care still matters just as much as innovation. We talk about AI in fertility care, embryo selection, precision medicine, and how fertility treatment may become more individualized in the future. Enjoy! This episode of Create a Happy Family is brought to you by Families Out Loud. Families Out Loud is a nonprofit organization dedicated to supporting and uplifting families on their path to parenthood through community, education, and advocacy. By creating safe, inclusive spaces and connecting families with resources and support, they help ensure every family feels seen, valued, and empowered. Learn more at familiesoutloudevents.com. Dr. Olcha, before we dive in to where fertility care is going, I'd love to start with just what drew you to reproductive medicine in the first place?
I was very nerdy and kind of geeky, loved a lot of tech stuff, and reproductive endocrinology and infertility kind of combines the best of all those worlds. When you are watching in a microscope and you're kind of seeing life form in front of your eyes, where you're seeing that sperm and the egg combine and the cells are dividing in front of you, to me, that's just the coolest thing in the world. And I'm very privileged to be in this field, and I can't imagine why anyone would want to be any other kind of doctor. But that's what drew me in.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, and you're so right. It's like it is truly just the coolest thing with it being one of the fastest growing, innovative, constantly changing. It's just so he was like, it's just so fun. It's just so fun to be
Yeah,
here.
there's like a lot of different facets to REI or infertility medicine.
Yeah.
Even in the last 20 years or so, it's an exponential rise in the kind of things that we're seeing, and even in the outcomes. They're just
Mhm.
significantly better, and every year we are able to do things that are raising the pregnancy rates dramatically compared to what they were like the year before.
Yeah, which is so amazing.
It is amazing, yeah.
Before we get into just some of that fun nitty gritty, I mean, you have built your career around helping people navigate some of just the most complex and emotional moments in family building. As you look at fertility care, what feels most different to you from even just a few years ago?
I think that there's a couple things going on.
Mhm.
First of all, just in terms of the clinical work, we are really seeing a change in how people are accepting IVF as just like a normal part of having a child and building a family, right?
Yeah.
That has really changed in the last 10 or 15 years to the point where before, if you asked, and this is like a silly one, but if you asked someone to write like a Google review, people were really afraid of doing that 10 years ago or 15 years ago
Mm,
because they didn't really want other people to know that they were building a family through IVF or through surrogacy or through egg donation.
yeah.
And today that's much different. I think people are much more open about it. We've got Facebook groups, and it's just not taboo. It's not different. It's just another thing
Hmm.
that's just another way to have a baby. So that mindset has changed dramatically, and I think it's really amazing and great and nice to know that sort of society has started to accept this as not kind of like a blame game. There's nothing wrong with you, right? This is just, it's a little hurdle and it's normal and it's okay to do IVF. It's okay to use a surrogate. It's okay if you need to use an egg donor. And these are just like okay things. So I think there's been a huge change there.
Hmm.
Um, There is also another like really big change, kind of in the same vein of women that are interested in preserving their fertility, because again, that was something that wasn't really commonly done in the early 2000s. And we're seeing young women who are working and really trying to move forward in their career and delaying having a child. And now they're very open about freezing their eggs, and they're kind of looking to freeze their eggs, then they're driven to it, and they're not feeling embarrassed that they're even going to have to do this procedure, and they're talking to their friends about it, right? So like that, again, same kind of mindset, but it's really
Mm-hmm.
cool to see that cultural change, at least in this country.
Yeah, no, 100%. I couldn't agree more. I feel like, I mean, for something that is, one in six, for it to, in some respects, you have some who are still really quiet about it. And then, like you said, you have others who are like, oh, yeah, I'm freezing my eggs at this time. Oh, yeah, me
Mhm.
too. Or, just that kind of, and like you said, that cultural shift.
Yeah, so I think, from that perspective, those are really cool changes that I've seen since coming into the field about maybe like 10 or 12 years ago. And then we've seen a lot of change in the laboratory, and
Mm,
some of this can get like really granular, but kind of like bigger picture, bigger scope things are a lot more technologies being used and development of a lot of technologies. There's a lot more money going into how to improve outcomes, kind of things that are looking at best practices and how to standardize practices across clinics so
hmm.
that outcomes are a little bit more even. Um, Whether that's in the technology that's used to grow embryos and incubators, and there's a lot been changed in that space. There have been things that have changed just in terms of the kind of media and the reagents that we use in the laboratory. Even some of the instrumentation that we're using has changed in the last 10 years to make things better. Certainly, the quality of optics, like microscopes and lasers that we're using, has
Yeah.
improved even in the last 10 years. And now we're starting to see even sort of like the flood of AI technologies coming in that are able to interpret all these and actually give us some feedback so we know how to improve on the outcome.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I'm so excited to talk to you about that because yes, I have so many questions about that. But before we get there, I, I know you said there's like standard of care, within the laboratory and things like that. I also know one of the things that, makes you just such a beloved RE is you really put patients at the center of just their care. And you talk a lot about the kind of individualized experience. What does that actually mean for someone that is starting a journey?
I guess like I take a little bit of a different approach. Maybe like first of all, I practice at a lower volume clinic. We're kind of a boutique kind of concierge care. We treat everyone like family here. We know everyone that's coming in. We're not a factory style clinic, and I'm
Mhm.
not saying that that's bad or good. It's just it's just different,
Yeah.
and maybe it's good for some but bad for others, right? So you kind of have to find the place that I think you feel most comfortable in as a patient. But I do think that for me, whether you're a patient undergoing IVF with your own eggs, you're a donor that's coming through our program and you're donating your eggs, you're a surrogate, right? Like I treat everyone the same, like as if they're our own patients. It's not
Mhm.
really, there's no question that, oh, well, she's a surrogate, so we're going to treat her differently, or she's an egg donor, we're going to treat, like, we really treat everyone the same.
Mhm.
And I think that's really important. I think patients appreciate that. And you know probably one of the most important things that I try to do, that I think sometimes is difficult at larger clinics, is we try to be as transparent as we can with patients, so it's not
Mhm.
like a black box. So they come in, they do their ultrasound, they do their blood work, they leave, they have no clue what's going on, right? We don't like that, because when things are a black box and they're not transparent, you get anxious, you get nervous, and you're not sure, is this good that I have 5 follicles? Is it not good? Like, is this what you're
Sure.
expecting, right? So I try to do my best to, give people as much time as possible and really set their expectations, let them understand what's going on, talk to them about the protocol, and be as transparent as possible. And I think that, I think that goes a long way.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, all of those words are something that just as an agency, we 100% are like, oh, those are our values. Transparency. It's so important in this industry with surrogacy, with egg donation, with intended parents, to not be a number. You are a person going through something. You need to know what's going on. Nobody wants to feel in the dark, especially with something that can be so, like you said, it's anxiety inducing for sure.
Definitely, if you are an intended parent and you're going through a surrogacy journey, already there's like a little bit of a distance there because
Sure.
the surrogate is at home, right? You're at your own house. You're not seeing them every day necessarily. And so you're kind of relying on the clinic to make sure that things are going well, and you want to be as informed as possible, and you want that reassurance that things are actually moving along the way they're supposed to.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously fertility care it can be so protocol driven. What does it look like with this idea of moving away from kind of that one size fits all approach and really moving toward that, like I said, that more personalized approach?
Yeah. I'd probably say that this, it's kind of like as a whole, what we call this general concept is kind of what we call precision medicine, basically,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like how can we be more precise and, you say personalized, but it's kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
And what we're really saying is if we have three different people in front of us, are there any markers that we can look at? Are there any differences in those patients that we can kind of plug in, and whether it's in our head or using some systems, make sure that we create the proper protocols for that individual?
Mm-hmm.
Because everyone is going to be different. Everyone's biology is a little bit different. And we know that outcomes are going to be different if you give everyone the same protocol, that what you're not really maximizing the outcome for that specific patient. So there's like two ways of getting around this. One is your own internal gut and experience as a physician, and maybe part of that is your training and how diverse your patient population has been in the last 10 years that you've been
Mm.
practicing, right? And what kind of things did you see in fellowship? So like part of that is kind of the subjective artistry of clinical practice.
Mm-hmm.
And I think being in a smaller, more kind of boutique-ish clinic here, I have the luxury of not having to follow, the X way of doing it. And you can
Mm.
put whatever center you want there, whether it's like Cornell or Columbia or, whatever center. Like some centers have like their way, like their protocol,
Mm-hmm.
which is good when you have a lot of big doctors, like a lot of doctors, because it's, you want to minimize the variability a little bit. But of course, it's nice to be able to have the flexibility to use your own artistic, we'll call it like artistic, um, I don't know, knowledge to kind of paint the picture that you want to paint with the
Yeah.
patient. And that's how I see it, right? I look at the whole patient, I look at their history, their past cycles, if they've had any, their egg reserve. And then we sort of like paint this picture in our head of what we think is going to be the best protocol that fits them. So that's
Mm.
kind of part one. A little bit hard to explain and definitely relies on experience. And then part two, which I also utilize, and I utilize them kind of in combination, is, well, how can we take the technology that's available to us in the field
Mm-hmm.
and use that to facilitate painting that picture as well, right? And
Mm.
there are some great AI and software technologies where you can input into the system your consult note and their past history and their age and their AMH level, and then it will output what it thinks, right, are the right protocols for this patient. And it might even show you protocol 1, 2, 3, 4, and then show you, well, if you did protocol 1, this is likely your outcome. If you did protocol 2, this is likely your outcome. And that's how we really become much more precise. So we take a little bit of the artwork and a little bit of the sort of science-y big data stuff, and we put it together, at least here, and that's how we come up with our protocols.
Okay, this is so fascinating to me because I have to say there's a part of me that's like, I'm okay with ChatGPT making me my grocery list, but I get a little nervous about this
Yeah.
idea of plugging in, just a couple of things and being like, all right, here's my protocol. Like, tell me, get into the nitty gritty about like with it for me and just kind of help me understand what does that actually look like in practice?
Yeah. So, ChatGPT takes information from all over the web, right? So it's
Right.
not validated data. That's the problem. And that's why when you have patients that are on ChatGPT and they're looking at, is this procedure painful? And it's going to say, yeah, this procedure is really painful. Whereas like it may not be, right?
Sure.
So ChatGPT is kind of taking stuff from talked about like Facebook groups to Google searches to
Mm-hmm.
Twitter, right? And it's taking all this data that I wouldn't call it validated data. Whereas the AI platforms that we have, what happens is they are only given validated data sets to use. So
Mm,
it's not like it's going on the internet or using some chat GPT algorithm to figure out what your best IVF protocol is. What's happening is that the software developers are actually taking real world outcomes across hundreds of thousands of IVF cycles, and
mm-hmm.
they're putting that into the system as sort of like the database from what it learns from. Now we know that we're relying on validated data to make the decision. And like I said, it's a combination of both, right? It's like you don't just do what the computer says. You use the computer to kind of help guide you a little bit and make sure that your thought process is actually really well correlated with with validated outcome data.
So you still definitely have that critical thinking piece for sure, but it's almost like a faster way to get a hold of maybe a medical journal that you haven't gotten to yet.
Yeah, and I think it also provides a little reassurance because more often what I'll find is, okay, this is the protocol I want to put someone on, and the software actually kind of agreed right away, right? So it's a little
Yeah.
bit of a reassuring thing there, and I think that's it's nice to have that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, yes, absolutely. I love collaborating on projects and things. And, it is nice to have a team sit there and kind of tell you, well, yeah, this is great. Or actually, have you thought about, this maybe possibility? What's when it says you had said, it kind of like spits out like protocol 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah,
Are you at that point, is that where you're going to, your own gut, or how do you kind of
yeah.
decipher
I guess
that?
that's like your baseline, right? So that's like
Okay.
your starting point, and then from there you put in your little tweaks, right? Like
Yeah.
my own recipe, right, which is going to be slightly different from other people's recipes.
For sure.
And hopefully the combination of the two will get the patient the best outcome.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll get right back to the show in just a moment. But if there's one thing we believe at Egg Donor and Surrogate Solutions, it's that building a family through egg donation or surrogacy should never feel transactional. For over 18 years, we've helped hopeful parents, surrogates, and egg donors navigate this process with education, transparency, and relationship centered support every step of the way. We believe people deserve honest information, thoughtful guidance, and a team that truly sees the human side of this journey. If you'd like to learn more about our agency or explore working with our team, visit createahappyfamily.com. All right, let's get back to the show. I know you said just outcome success rates they've just steadily gone up over the year. Has there been an assessment on kind of some of these AI tools and the success rate from there? I guess, should where should patients feel encouraged by something like this?
Yeah. So, this is like an ever developing field, right?
Sure.
I mean, like it for sure is. And I don't know that, I mean, we are far away from the point where we can say AI can just do it all. I think
Sure.
we're very far from there. Um, I think it depends on what aspects of the journey that you're using the technology is going to maybe give you, like, the answer might be a little bit different
Yeah.
for whatever aspect you're looking at. There is some interesting data that's come out recently on, for example, there's some AI platforms that look at the images of the embryos once they're sort of fully developed. And if you're someone that you're trying to figure out, do I put in embryo number 1 or 2 or 3 or 4? Traditionally, what we would do is we would ask the embryologist to look at the embryos and kind of grade them based on how they look.
Yeah.
That's kind of like looking at a painting, though, right? And while there are some objective criteria, a lot of that is subjective. And I think we know that if we show the same embryo to 5 different embryologists, you might get 5 slightly different answers. Probably they'll all be in the same range. Like no one's going to say that this is a really bad embryo and this is a really great embryo, but you might have some slight variations there. And there are now some softwares that are out there that look at the embryos and help kind of prioritize based on, again, a standardized, validated image set to see and try to assist the embryologist and the doctor in counseling the patient on which embryo is better, essentially, right? So that technology, I think, is developing really nicely. And there was one study that came out very recently, about a month ago, which was a non-inferiority study, which basically said that the software was at least as good as an embryologist. So not better, but at least we're at the point where we have some digital software that might be almost as good as an embryologist. And I think, to me, that means that like in 5 years, we are probably going to get to the point where maybe the software is better, right? Or at the very least, if you've got a number of embryologists and some are newer and some are more senior, right? Like this is some interesting technology that you could help a more junior embryologist kind of get better, right? Because they're sort of using the software to help them develop their own sort of appreciation of whether an embryo is going to have a high or low potential.
No, that's fascinating. I've kind of a selfish question, but a lot of times kind of the general standard, like particularly with surrogates, is, if you have 3 failed transfers, that's it. A clinic's not really, you're now kind of too high risk, if you will.
Sure.
With technology like this, because a lot of times you'll have, maybe a surrogate will come back, or, even just intended parents or whatever it may be, and kind of say, well, hey, let's take a look at that embryo quality. What were kind of maybe some of the factors that you're not seeing, on paper? Is this technology something that would maybe change some of those kind of standard protocols across clinics?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I guess if you had that data, like the images of those embryos or the data output from the machine that says that actually all those embryos were like not really destined to survive anyways, like maybe it would, right? Because it is difficult. And that's just one variable. I mean, you have a surrogate that fails 2 or 3 times. Maybe it's the embryo, maybe it's the surrogate, maybe it's the doctor doing the transfer, maybe it's the embryologist that loaded the embryo, maybe it's the embryologist that thawed the embryo, maybe it's the embryologist that froze the embryo. It's like so difficult. There are so many variables here that like all have to be perfect for us to have a success. And if even one is off, then that's a failure. And I think, what we're doing by kind of disqualifying a surrogate based on just 3 failed transfers alone is we're making the assumption that it's something wrong with the surrogate, where that's an assumption at the end of the day. Certainly I can imagine a day where if we had some better tools to evaluate not just the embryo, but maybe other factors, like other independent variables, that might help us better determine who are good surrogates or who are, better or worse surrogates.
Yeah, no, I love that. A lot of times you're in this industry, you have people kind of looking for like that magic bullet type of situation. When it comes to this type of technology, obviously this is incredibly exciting, but where should maybe patients still ask questions or be more reserved as it's developing?
I mean, everywhere, I guess, right? Like,
sure.
At the end of the day, I always tell patients that you are your best advocate, like your best medical advocate. You should always advocate for yourself, no matter what. And that's true of whether it's fertility or you go to the ER, like anytime someone's going to present something to you as a treatment option, it falls under your responsibility to make sure that you ask the right questions. And I think this is definitely one of those things. Obviously, you want to trust your doctor. And I think, picking a good clinic and a good doctor that has experience is good. Um, it's AI is it's kind of like a buzzword, but it's a new field and everyone's putting AI in everything. And
Yeah.
I think even when I look at some softwares, even though they say AI, they're not really AI. They're just more like standard linear algorithms, not
Uh-huh.
necessarily like learning based modules. Or so you got to be a little bit careful about that. But yeah, I would say like I'm still cautious myself. Like I don't just adopt the technology just because it was sold to me by a vendor and because there was one paper on it. There's lots of things with one paper, and turns out later they're totally wrong.
Sure.
So, yeah, I mean, I think you have to be cautious, and the clinic needs to be a little bit cautious when you're adopting new technologies like this.
Because there is so much information available to patients, and especially with new technologies, breakthroughs, things like that, how do you help patients kind of balance hope with realistic expectations?
Um, well, that's a hard one. Yeah. It's funny, like as much as I love Google and ChatGPT and all that stuff, it can
Sure.
be really bad too.
Hmm.
Um, I think that it goes back to sort of like the transparency and the setting expectations that can really help kind of ground people,
Hmm.
so that they're not getting lost in these holes, these like internet holes of whatever it is.
Yeah.
For me, like as many touch points as I can have with the patient, I try. So like I like to do my own scans in the morning. That gives me an opportunity to talk to them for just even 2 or 3 minutes and give them a quick update. We try to call them in the afternoon, and if I can get a couple calls into some patients to tell them their progress, I think that helps.
Hmm.
Um, as many touch points as we can get with them, I think that can be helpful, and it allows you the opportunity to just really like kind of hone in on the expectations. So if you're someone that is 43 or 44 and you're using your own eggs, you could read a story about someone that posted that they were 45 and they got pregnant on their own. Yeah, but that's like one story out of maybe 1,000
Hmm.
or out of 100, right? And then 99 other women that unfortunately didn't get pregnant, they're not out on the internet writing about it, right? Because
Sure.
no one likes to write about failures. Um, so I think, just like really being transparent and setting expectations is super important. And I think that, that helps people overall.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I go off on just my soapbox about Dr. Google and how much I am, like please proceed with caution or just don't proceed at all with Dr. Google. But definitely it is so important to have those touch points so that you can have that opportunity to have patient education behind that. One of the things that is so great is, I know you serve on the board of Families Out Loud with
I do.
Katie. It's just, supporting the LGBTQ community. From your perspective, how does fertility care need to just continue to evolve to better support LGBTQ intended parents?
Yeah. I mean, first of all, I think we should acknowledge that it's come a long way in the last 10 or
Yeah.
15 years, right? It's really come a long way. Um, and even the founders of Families Out Loud, who had to go through surrogacy themselves,
Mm-hmm.
even 5 years ago, I think is when they went through it, or around that time frame, had a really tough time, even back then.
Yeah.
And things are getting better and better, which is good. But I think they will continue to get even better. The good part is that we have a lot more tools available to us today
Mm-hmm.
that maybe weren't available 10 or 15 years ago.
Mm.
Um, and things like the ability to find a donor or find a surrogate or find a reputable agency, I think you're just having an easier time today to find that than you were if you were looking for a surrogate 15 years ago. You probably had like a pretty challenging time.
Yeah.
I think that there's a lot more education out there now, and groups where you can join and have these like, interesting live interaction sessions with other intended parents that are looking towards surrogacy, and a lot of kind of open discussion, which is great.
Yeah.
We're definitely seeing a lot more, even just in terms of education on websites. Like clinic websites are going to have whole sections dedicated just towards LGBTQ or surrogacy or third party. And I think that's great. I think that gives you a lot of insight as to whether that clinic is going to be a good clinic for you, if they have something on their website about it. And I think we are much more open to doing like cooler things today. Like I get a lot of patients who might want to do reciprocal IVF cycles where you've got two women and they're going to use their own eggs, but their embryos that they're creating, they're swapping, right? So one person carries the embryo of her partner.
Yeah.
And that wasn't something that I ever saw in fellowship. It just, I don't know. I never saw that.
Sure.
But we see it a lot today, and we're proud to offer it. And I think it's a really great way for, two partners to both be involved in some way or another in sort of like building that family together. And to me, that's like one of the coolest things you can do.
Yeah. When you are talking about the future of fertility, the advancements, all of the different things, from your perspective, what is most exciting right now? And what might be getting a little more attention than it should?
I am really excited about some of the new equipment that we use in the laboratory today.
Well, you're a tinkerer. This feels
yes,
right.
So like, I'm a geek kind of when it comes to tech and equipment and engineering. We typically will grow embryos in incubators, just like if you go to the, like the neonatal ICU and you have the babies not growing, you have the babies that maybe are premature and they're sitting in this incubator and it's warm
Right.
and cozy, right? So we have the same thing, but in a much smaller form factor. And so those little incubators are controlling things like your pH and your temperature and your oxygen and carbon dioxide in a tiny little chamber so that this embryo can grow. Traditionally, we would take the embryo out of the incubator every couple days to check on it. And the problem is that exposes the embryo to the air and the ambient air quality and the ambient air temperature. And you're kind of taking the embryo in and out all the time. There is some really cool technology that's come out in the last decade, but really has made huge strides in the last couple of years, called time-lapse incubation.
Okay.
And it's very cool. It's where you have in the actual incubator a camera that takes pictures like every 15 minutes of the embryo across 5 or 6 or 7 days. And an embryo, you should think of it as like a sphere, right? It's like a basketball.
Right.
So not only does it just take a picture, but it takes a picture at different focal lengths. So we can see the top of the embryo, the upper pole, the middle, the lower pole, the bottom of the embryo, all those pictures every 15 minutes across 7 days, right? So we get this like tremendous amount of data. We are able to watch the embryo grow across the 5 to 7 days.
Yeah.
We don't have to take the embryo out of the incubator, right? We sort of like set it and forget it. So we're not manipulating the embryo. We're not changing the temperatures, taking it out, putting it back in. And I think we're finding like just that alone, we're getting better outcomes. So to me, that's like really cool technology that's out there. And we can even, talk about really cool, we can even export a video of this embryo growing over 5 days and give it to the patient, right? Like after we've transferred the embryo and they're pregnant.
Yeah.
It used to be that you would give people like a printed picture of their
everyone
baby,
just has their one
right,
little thing.
on
Yeah.
ultrasound. Now we can give you like a video of this embryo that has been growing in our incubator for 5 days. And it's mind blowing. It's really cool stuff.
That is so cool. Obviously, when I shouldn't say obviously, but part of, just creating embryos is, some of that genetic testing and, just all of that jazz. Does this technology have anything to do with kind of taking away the natural issues that can come up if you're going to, try and, hey, let's check for certain, genetic markers or things like that?
So the answer is right now, probably not, but
Okay.
in future, definitely, right? So I think what we are going to learn is that by analyzing the footage
Mm-hmm.
over 5 days or 6 days or 7 days and analyzing the hundreds of images that we're getting, we are going to learn a lot about the morphokinetics of this embryo, how the cells are dividing. Are they equally divided? Are they off to one pole? Is it skewed? Are there, a lot of particles, right, as they're dividing? And we are going to probably learn over the next 5 to 10 years that somehow correlates to whether an embryo has Down syndrome or whether an embryo has a high risk for miscarriage or
Yeah.
a high risk for pregnancy. Right? We're going to learn this stuff. Right now, we have all the data and we don't really know what to do with it. It's like when the genome was first sequenced, we knew the genome, but we didn't know what it meant, right?
Sure.
So that's where we're at. We know what it kind of looks like, but we don't yet know how to interpret the 3,000 images that are taken. And I think that's where, to bring AI back, right? That's where
Yeah.
some really good computing power can look through thousands of images and have a much better idea of what that means and how well it will correlate to an outcome. And we will see that, for sure. I am a huge believer that there will be a day where no one is doing DNA biopsies anymore because it's just not necessary, and that the data we're getting from these time-lapse imaging incubators is going to be as good as the DNA data that we're getting.
Wow. That is so cool.
Yeah.
It all sounds so exciting, and you've kind of already said it earlier, you still always proceed with caution. Is there anything about this, just all of these advancements that are taking place where you're like, I don't know, nervous or kind of like, hey, let's not go down that road?
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned this thing called a non-inferiority study before, and
Hmm.
yeah, that's really critical when we bring on technologies. And what that means is it's just like a fancy word for saying that someone has studied this new technology, new method, new protocol, whatever it is, right? New media, there's lots of
Hmm.
things. And they've compared it to the current standard. And they have proved without a doubt, with some really good statistics, that this new technology, we'll call it, is at least as good as the standard of care.
Right.
And I think as long as we have data like that, I'm not as concerned moving forward. But it's really important that all of these companies and vendors make sure that they do the proper studies and that the physicians in the clinics do the right due diligence before adapting said study.
Yeah.
This is probably true of any medicine too, right? Like when a new heart medicine comes out, or a new blood pressure medicine comes out, or cholesterol medicine comes out, we don't just take it, right? We study
Sure.
it first. We do RCTs, we do a phase 1 trial, a phase 2 trial, a phase 3 trial. It gets FDA approved, and the same is true in IVF. I think sometimes we all get so excited, and so we want to adapt something really early.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, we have to be cautious and careful, and I think we certainly try to do that here at our office.
Yeah, for sure. Kind of continuing along, like you said, you're excited about all those things, but you look at the patient as a whole, or the, scenario as a whole, particularly with third party reproduction, surrogacy, egg donation, where it involves multiple people placing so much trust in the process. For you, what responsibility does that place on the physicians to ensure that everyone is feeling informed and knows that protocol, and kind of maybe just going back to kind of just that patient education aspect of things?
I always tell my intended parents that it's my job to be your advocate, right? Like that's my job. And everyone that you're going to interact with, they're all going to have their own agendas. Maybe the egg bank is going to want to sell eggs, and
Sure.
the surrogacy agency is going to want to sign the contract, and the lawyer is going to want to get the lawyer fee. Like everyone's going to have their own agendas, and we certainly have our own agenda too. I mean, I'd like to think our agenda is to get you pregnant.
Right.
But ultimately, like I tell people that, like what I really try to do is advocate for you as the patient. And if I think that somewhere down the line, it's not a good match or something's not a good fit, then I'll be completely like clear and honest about it. And it's better to know up front than to find out, later.
Yeah.
A lot of that comes down to our processes and our screenings that we do, and reviewing the medical records and making sure that the psychology evaluations are right. Like we have a pretty good outline of the things that need to happen before we match either with egg donors or with surrogates, because at the end of the day, we also want that match to last forever.
Mm-hmm.
And like the only thing I can offer is my experience and my expertise, and just really like letting the patients know that like we're on their side, like we are really on your side. And the truth is, like, everyone here is on the patient side.
Yeah.
But at least from the medical perspective, like, we try to give them as much decent, good, quality, competent medical advice as we can.
Mm-hmm. Well, and again, it just goes back to that value of being transparent. And I'm not going to give you necessarily the news that you want to hear, but I'm going to give you the honest, truth in all of
Yeah.
this. And it goes to, working with industry professionals that share that, working with, the agencies that don't look at everybody as a number, or the attorneys that are in it not for the lawyer fee but for the, hey, guess what, parentage time,
Right.
just that kind of thing.
Yeah. And, like, just like most clinics, that we have the partners that we like to work with and the ones that we
Yeah.
don't like to work with. And,
Mm-hmm.
obviously I'm on a podcast with you, so we like to work with you. But yeah, there are people that we don't like to work with, and I'm not shy about letting my intended parents know that maybe you should look somewhere else.
Yeah. Well, and again, that goes back to just the importance of that patient education and having those trusted, just that trusted team of, yeah, hey, I realized that maybe you saw that one Google review or you typed it into Chat GPT, but let's follow up with that.
Yeah, and I think organizations like Families Out Loud are great because
Yeah.
they have their own reputation, and that if you're going to go with one of their partners, that are on their whatever list they have, you're probably going to find someone reputable, as opposed to
Mhm.
just doing like a random Google search.
Yeah, for sure. When you think about success in these journeys, what to you, like, what does that look like beyond, just that positive pregnancy test?
Um, it's probably different for different people and different journeys. It's like you have
Sure.
some patients who, positive or negative pregnancy, like it's really important for them to know that they did everything they could have possibly done, right? Like they don't want to wake up one day in 5 years regretting not done something.
Hmm.
And I think that, even if you have a negative outcome, and not everyone that comes through our program is successful in terms of having a live birth. Like that's human biology, by the way. Like that is just the way it is. There's no
Yeah.
program that's 100%. But I think what makes us really different is that we try to help the patients understand that even if they didn't have a successful outcome, like we really did everything possible.
Hmm.
And there's a lot to be said for that. There's like really a lot to be said for that. And sometimes, like, knowing that you did everything possible to use your eggs, like, and it didn't work, that might give the person kind of like I guess, like, the reassurance that, yes, I think I'm ready to move to donor egg, and that's okay, and that's
Sure.
not a bad thing. So yeah, I think making sure that people understand that they did everything they could, within reason, is really important.
Hmm.
Um, obviously we love the success stories and we love the, the babies and the baby pictures and all that stuff too.
Oh yeah, it's the best for sure.
Yeah, it is the best. I mean, when we call patients with their pregnancy test, it's usually like me and all of my coordinators in my office, and we call them on speakerphone, and we yell at them. We're like, "You're pregnant," and everyone's laughing
Yes.
and crying. We like to do that.
Oh, I love
Yeah.
it. I love it. The baby pictures are just yes, no, it's the best. I love it. My favorite has been I get like the Christmas cards and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, they're so huge." And just
Yeah.
like seeing all of that. No, for sure.
We keep a cork board with all the cards that we get from people, and it's a really nice reminder when you walk in every morning of like how special of a field this is and what kind of
Yeah.
impact we have on people's lives.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Yeah.
For someone listening right now and navigating, just their own fertility treatment journey, maybe they're feeling overwhelmed or uncertain, what would you want them to understand about this field where they are and as they
Hmm.
move forward?
I mean, like the most important thing is for them to understand that they're not alone. Like
Mhm.
you're definitely not alone. If you think you're overwhelmed, everyone else around you is just as overwhelmed. Like there's no one that
Absolutely.
walks into my office that is like, oh, I'm happy, that I'm here sitting at a fertility clinic and that I might need to use a donor and a surrogate. No one is happy about that.
Mm,
And I think, it's okay to be nervous and anxious and overwhelmed. Like it's normal and natural. In fact, I would say it's probably unnatural if you're not.
yeah.
So yeah, I think, take a deep breath, understand that it's normal. And the other thing that is sometimes helpful is try not to just put everything together at once, like as if you have to do everything in one day, right?
Mhm.
Like you have to get out of that mindset and just look at the bigger picture and understand that there are steps and like, you do this in baby steps and it's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen tomorrow and that's okay.
Yeah.
Don't get overburdened with the 70,000 things you have to do. Like you just finish one thing,
Mhm.
feel comfortable with it, and then move to the next thing. Finish that, then move to the next thing, right?
Right.
If, if you're two men and you're trying to have a baby, maybe the first step is just a semen analysis. Just get that done. Like don't worry about finding a surrogate and an egg donor and what about like just do your semen analysis. Make sure that looks good. And once that's good, maybe the next step would be freezing sperm. Fine. Do it in like little steps.
Mhm.
Because otherwise I think you will get overwhelmed too fast. Um, when you're going through fertility treatment, it's like learning a language, right? We
Yeah.
speak a different language, and
100%.
it's a totally different language. It's the same thing when I bring a new nurse on or a new coordinator. It takes them 3 months just to learn like the words that are coming out of my mouth.
Absolutely. The
Um,
alphabet soup that is fertility is
yeah,
crazy.
yeah. So you're not gonna just like you don't learn a new language in a day. You
Sure.
are not gonna go through your fertility journey in a day. There's lots of things to do, and you'll get there eventually.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Well, Dr. Olcha, just thank you so much for everything that you do. And, again, just the partnership that we have through, Families Out Loud and just all that you do for, our mutual clients. But I do have one last question for you, and it's a fun one. For anyone who knows me and you've seen me this whole time sipping on my lovely cup of coffee, coffee and I are never far from each other. I may or may not be a little dependent. But I always love to ask the question, what has filled your cup today? Literally or figuratively, what has been the thing to fill your cup?
um, let's see. Well, I like you have a coffee cup. Um,
Yes.
what has filled my cup today?
I'll tell you what filled my cup today was I just have like kind of a basic coffee situation with a touch of cream. And then I am currently still riding the high of my eldest, who is it's show week this week. They're doing Frozen Junior, and she was Oaken last night. And the whole like Yoo-hoo Big Summer Blowout thing was just so fun. And it was just so cute. And I just keep thinking about it. I'm like, how are you 14? What's happening?
All right. I'll tell you what filled my cup today then. in the same vein as fertility. So I have like a chicken coop in my house, and I own chickens.
I love it.
And I just got this like brand new batch of chicks maybe like 4 months ago, and now
Okay.
they're much bigger. And yesterday was the first time they laid an egg. So I finally had an egg, and I was very excited. Obviously, you know what I do for a living.
Yes.
So yeah, I am now getting eggs from my chickens, and it's really cool, and I'm excited. I was like so excited for that.
Oh my gosh.
So
Congratulations.
that's what filled
You're
my
like
cup.
you're a chicken dad, I guess.
Yes.
That is amazing. I love that so much. Oh my gosh. Well, again, just thank you so much for everything, for explaining some of this fun nitty gritty, and just for all that you do in just supporting your patients. Really, it all matters so much, and we're so grateful. And I'm just so grateful that you took the time today to be here.
Thank you so much for having us, and for having me. And I hope your listeners got something out of this. And, we're always available for anyone that needs care.
100%. Thank you.
Yeah.